Everyone out of the house.
No.
Everyone's detained.
Do you have a warrant?
Come on out.
Do you have a warrant? This is being videotaped. I hope you know that. Do you have a warrant? I'm going to call the police and I don't care. I'm going to call the cops.
Everyone outside now.
What's your name and your badge number?
If you continue to
I have
obstruct me,
kids. I'm not obstructing you. I have small kids and dogs. Do you have a warrant? Do you have a warrant?
You're going to be placed under
Do you have a warrant?
right now. Get everyone out of this house right now.
Yes, ma'am. 921
Under
Little Ring. For what?
obstruction.
I'm on the phone with 911.
You're hindering.
You're
investigation.
scaring my son.
Again, everyone is detained.
I called the police to confirm that you had a warrant and that you're arresting me.
Everyone is detained.
Put it on social media. Put it on social media.
Probable cause to believe that evidence.
Roland Mumford with Mumford.law. Today I have a video regarding a lady's home who was entered into by Woodstock, Georgia Police Department officers upon the pretext of performing a protective sweep, something that was manufactured as a pretext long after the fact. But they went into this lady's home to search for what we know now was her 21-year-old son's cell phone. Now, there's a news video I'm going to play here in a moment that will give some of the backstory. However, when you watch this news video, as I did, I initially thought that this was arising out of a possible hot pursuit from rising out of a traffic interaction, or what the police have referred to as a felony traffic interaction, whatever that means. Well, it turns out that these officers were not in hot pursuit of her 21-year-old son, who they thought possibly lived at this residence and had entered the residence. I had just done a video on something like the same issue here recently. These officers had already had contact with the 21-year-old son a couple of days before and had the opportunity to arrest him. But apparently they were pursuing an investigation regarding whatever other alleged matters, and they wanted this phone. They appear on Natasha Lopez's property, her residence, and we are looking at the merits of this case, and it may be accepted by my firm. And I have done an interview with Natasha Lopez, which we're going to show after the news clip. So the issue which is an interesting issue, is can police perform a protective sweep inside your home while applying for a search warrant? And generally speaking, no. Police cannot enter a home without a search warrant just to conduct a protective sweep while applying for a search warrant unless certain legal exceptions apply. And here's the breakdown of the key legal concepts. Generally speaking, it has to be incident to a lawful arrest of somebody, or that there's somebody dangerous inside the home. Generally speaking, that is really the only time that an officer can enter a home to perform a protective sweep while applying for a search warrant or possibly an arrest warrant. Now, a protective sweep is a limited search by law enforcement of places in a home where a person might be hiding. It's meant to protect officers from hidden threats, not to search for evidence. The key case that I have found on the issue of protective sweeps is Maryland versus Bowie, or BUIE, is 494 U.S. 325, 1990. Police can only do a protective sweep under the following conditions: that they are lawfully inside the home, that is, with a warrant, consent, or due to an exigent circumstance, or they have reasonable, articulable suspicion that a person posing a danger is in the area to be swept. And they cannot go into the home, perform a protective sweep, and then actually start searching the home, looking for whatever it is they're looking for. In this case, we know they were looking for a phone, which nobody knew on scene other than the officers. They did not tell Miss Lopez about that. They cannot do that. So can they just enter the home for a sweep while waiting for a warrant? No, generally speaking. If police have no legal reason to already be inside the home, they cannot enter solely to perform a protective sweep while waiting for a warrant. Entering without a warrant or an applicable exception would violate the Fourth Amendment. There are some exceptions that might be allowed without a warrant. These are a few exceptions. Exigent circumstances. Is there imminent danger, destruction of an evidence, or pursuit of a fleeing suspect? Now what we know is that through this manufactured pretext is this officer saying he was concerned about destruction of evidence. This was a home where a lady lived with her minor children. The 21-year-old son did not live there, neither did his girlfriend. So everybody had been taken out of the home. The home was empty. There was absolutely no basis to perform this protective sweep while applying for a search warrant on scene. Now, an example of an exigent circumstance where they're of imminent danger might be if they heard someone inside yelling for help, or if someone made some kind of comment about maybe they were going to destroy this phone. Or the other circumstance is consent, if someone with authority over the premises voluntarily lets them in. Or third, plain view or open fields. But these don't justify entering a home itself. Without one of these exceptions, any entry and sweep would be unlawful, and any evidence found could be suppressed in court. And this 21-year-old gentleman, Miss Lopez's son, is going to have one hell of a motion to suppress, I believe, regarding whatever the circumstances and the allegations against him. So here are some key cases. Maryland versus Bowie, which we discussed, that defines the scope and the limitations of protective sweeps. Dayton versus New York, 1980. That was about warrantless entry into a home is presumptively unreasonable under the Fourth Amendment. And we have Minnesota versus Olson, 1990, that reaffirmed the privacy protections in homes and temporary residences. The bottom line is police cannot enter a home without a warrant just to do a protective sweep while waiting for a warrant, unless there's a valid exception, as we discussed, consent or exigent circumstances, and protective sweeps are only lawful if police are already lawfully inside the home. So let's take a look at this news video that gives a little bit of the backstory. And then on the other side, please be patient with this video interview. It's going to be worth watching. It's about 45 to 50 minutes long, but I think that you'll enjoy it. Ms. Lopez really goes into the details of what occurred. And here is one of the things that is shocking that we learned from this, is that according to Ms. Lopez, that one of the officers had pressured the girlfriend of her 21-year-old son to get consent to get the keys. Apparently he had gotten the keys from inside the home, and then they went to the 21-year-old son's apartment, I guess the girlfriend's apartment as well, and coerced consent from her by stating either, hey, we're going to get a search warrant and we're going to kick down your door and there's going to be damage, or you can give me consent and I can enter and do a search. And it appears that he may have obtained search under duress and coercion of this young lady. Still more details need to be about that. Now, if you listen in the interview, Ms. Lopez is literally going to read back some of the statements from the police report or the incident report or the officer's narrative, and she's going to give a point-by-point contradiction, say, hey, this in fact is not true. And there's going to be a video where we're going to show where was arrested for obstruction. The officer is saying that either she hindered or blocked his entry into the home or somehow obstructed his ability to enter the home to perform the protective sweep or a search. And she absolutely denies that and sent me some video to show exactly what happened and contradicts the police report. So I hope you enjoy this video. Please be patient and give it a chance. Watch the news story. And then immediately after that is the interview. And I think if you will give it time, I think you'll enjoy the interview. I hope you enjoy this. Please click like, share, and subscribe after the end of the interview.
Welcome back, and now to a story you'll only see right here on 11 Alive. A Cherokee County woman says deputies busted into her home without a warrant and then arrested her for questioning them. And she says she has the video to prove it.
Our Chase Howell looked into the legality of this and spoke to the woman who says the interaction comes from a traffic violation involving her adult son.
Security video from a Woodstock home shows the homeowner and a Cherokee County Sheriff's deputy at odds.
Felt really violated and kind of like shocked, like, wow, like this is really happening to me.
Natasha Lopez is the homeowner. She says deputies pulled up to her house to arrest her 21-year-old son over the weekend, but says that wasn't the problem.
Come on out. I have a warrant. Big video.
It was there when she says the deputy went into her home without permission that she has an issue with.
What makes him any different than a burglar or somebody who's out to harm me? To not just run into my home, because that's what he did. Even if he has a badge on, what he did was not legal. And if he's going to do that, what else is he going to do?
Circled in the video on the right of your screen, you can see Lopez standing in the doorway between the officer and her home, asking him for a warrant and calling 911.
Immediately, he just like that heard the 911 operator and just grabbed my arms and you're under arrest.
That night, Lopez was booked into the Cherokee County Jail for obstruction. The sheriff's office stands by their deputy. And while they wouldn't allow me to release the body cam footage publicly, they did allow me to view it, along with giving me a statement on Tuesday. In it, the sheriff's office says its deputy entered the home as part of a protective sweep before getting a signed search warrant for Lopez's son's phone.
Normally, when you're securing a scene, you're securing a scene maybe of where the incident actually occurred.
Lakeisha Fair is a criminal defense attorney. While she couldn't speak to this case specifically, she says when law enforcement doesn't supply a warrant before entering someone's home, it could be deemed illegal if it's not a life or death matter. As for Lopez and her obstruction charge, Fair says the deputy's command may have not been legal.
So if you're entering in someone's home without a warrant and you're trying to, enter in without the warrant and without producing the warrant, and she's asking you for the warrant, she has a right to ask you for a warrant if you're entering her home.
The search warrant in question here, both Lopez and the sheriff's office says was signed 30 minutes after her arrest. In Cherokee County, Chase Howell, 11 Alive News.
Lopez tells Chase she is filing a formal complaint with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. As for why the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office was looking into her son, deputies say it was for traffic felonies.
Natasha, my name is Roland Mumford. I'm an attorney. I'll introduce myself to you. I came across your story from Southern Draw Law. So if anybody's watching this video, please go to Southern Draw Law and look at the video that James White did. And that's how I learned about you. And I just kind of reached out to you on social media. I have a practice in Georgia, litigate Section 1983 cases in Arkansas, Tennessee, and Georgia. I'm relocating to Savannah, Georgia. And I was really interested in speaking with you and kind of just getting the background information on what happened. And kind of just want to let you explain everything that happened.
Okay.
What's going on?
So Saturday evening, my boyfriend and I had took our small kids, 9 and 8, and girl, to a place called Jumping World. It's a trampoline park, and we were letting them get some energy out. My 21-year-old son had just moved back here from North Carolina a couple weeks ago. He lives in an apartment not far from my house with his girlfriend. He had called me while I was at Jumping World, mentioned that he needed a ride home from his second part-time job, which happened to be right where I was at. Told him we'd grab him. And then he let me know that the police had been to his job and were just questioning him about allegations of, I want to say it was like speeding on the motorcycle. He has a motorcycle, so he has his driver's license, and then he has a motorcycle that he drives, but he can't drive it at night because he has a permit. So, that's why he needed the ride home. So he had told me that he was there, questioning him or whatnot. And I asked him briefly, well, what did you say? And he essentially was like, well, I just essentially told him I wasn't going to do his job, that he had just kind of figure it out. So that was the end of the conversation. He's 21. He lived in North Carolina for several years. So I don't see him a whole lot. I got younger kids that take up a lot of my time. But so I picked him up and we went home. And his girlfriend was supposed to be meeting him at my house to pick him up, and they were going to go home. When we got to the house, and we live on an incline in Rose, or a cul-de-sac. So as we're like coming down, you could see the two officers' cars sitting right in front of my house. I was slightly irritated because I was like, wow, my son just told me they just went to his work. And I'm like, why are they at my house? We pull up, we couldn't park where we normally park because the officers were there. And I told all of the kids to go in the house. Don't even stay outside, because sometimes they like to be nosy. Just all of you go in the house. So my older son took the younger kids into the house. My boyfriend and I met the officer in the middle of my yard, and I asked
him one quick question, because
Sure.
I think this was one thing we couldn't figure out from the news video where the news are out there. Did your son, the 21-year-old who was the subject of this incident with the law enforcement, did he live with you?
No, he
Okay.
hasn't. He has an apartment, which the officers knew because they had allegedly had already been to his apartment. Whatever they're alleging happened didn't happen that day. Didn't happen the day that they came into my house. This was a totally different day that they were
Oh, that's how it comes across.
I know.
It sounded in the news media like it was some kind of traffic incident, and maybe
they chased him to my house, and
that is how I took it.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
so wow, that makes the case even. Wow. Yeah. All right, go ahead. Please tell me.
So I met him in my yard. And me knowing that he had already been to my son's apartment and he just spoke with, he literally left my son's job and came to my house. I was, slightly irritated. So when I approached him, I said, what can I do for you? And he said, do you remember me? Which we moved to Georgia probably 15, 16 years ago. My oldest son, the one that, they're investigating, when we first moved here, I want to say it was like 8th grade, maybe it was probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Gotcha. Can I interject one
Yeah.
second?
Yeah.
Did they make contact with him before coming to your home? You said
Yes.
they went, so they had already knew who he was. They already had contact with him.
They were just with him literally.
Okay, because I think that's going to help people understand your story. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
you're
so they had
fine.
already made contact with him. They could have arrested him. So basically, there was no reason for them to be at your house, correct?
No, they actually, stood out there and talked with him in front of his job and
Okay.
kept trying to get him to, they told him if he would just give them something and cooperate, that they would work with him. But if he didn't, that he would face like a year in jail or in prison. I don't know. But my son essentially told him he wasn't going to do his job for him, that he would just have to figure it out. My son at the time was just done talking to him outside of his work,
The reason I'm asking you these questions is because what exigent circumstances did they have to into your home? So what we're trying to figure out is because obviously for the law enforcement to be able to enter your home, either they have to have a search warrant to enter, obviously, under the Fourth Amendment, or if they have an arrest warrant if the person was living at the residence. Now, if he wasn't living at your residence, then arguably they would have needed a search warrant, maybe possibly to look for him. Regardless, so they had made contact with him. They would have already had the opportunity to arrest him. So that's where I'm trying to figure out what exigent circumstance they would have had to come inside your home. That would have either been hot pursuit, which you're saying couldn't have been the situation because they had already made contact with him, or was there evidence of, I guess they could argue, is there a felony being committed or evidence of destruction of evidence being committed? And obviously, I don't see any of that. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. And I hope maybe that kind of helps you to what I'm trying to elicit from you
no,
in your explanation. Very good.
I can tell
Yeah.
you now what they're claiming. So
Yeah, they're claiming that sweep, a protective sweep.
well, I don't even know why they're claiming that. So when I talked to the officer and asked him what I could help him with, he asked me if I remembered him. He had a run-in with my son 6 or 7 years prior. It was mostly my son and his friends. It had something to do with his friends taking candy from the like softball place or whatever. He had investigated it. My son, there's like 6 or 7 of the kids. My son took one of those pleas where like you do community service or something and then it goes away. He was like 8th grade, 9th grade, but outside of that, he's never been in trouble. He asked me if I remembered him. I did, but I said, that was a long time ago. What can I do for you? He said, well, I'm investigating. And then I can't remember I don't want to like quote for sure, like what he said he was investigating and involving my son, but something with him speeding on the motorcycle and, allegedly. And I asked him, I said, well, what about it? He said, I want to know if I could ask you a couple questions about Chris and the motorcycle. I said, what about it? He said, well, do you know where the motorcycle is? And I said, did you not just talk to my son? And he was like, well, yeah. And I said, well, you will have to get a warrant for anything else. I don't have anything else to add to it. He got mad. He immediately was like, okay, fine. I'm going to get a warrant to arrest your son right now. So make sure he stays right there and doesn't go anywhere. I thanked him and then I walked away. However, he put in his police report that he was politely saying these things to me. And did he call me uncooperative or aggressive? I know that the sheriff's office told the reporter while he was at my house, because they called him and said that I was mouthy. They referred to me as mouthy. Because
Now, let me ask one quick question. Was your son outside of the
when
residence?
they
Was he
arrested
even
him,
there?
him,
No. When the police officers come into your home without the warrant, as I see in the news report, was your son there
he was already arrested and in the back of a cop car.
before they came into your home? That makes this even more egregious. Thank you. I'm just trying. I think it helps the audience to sort of understand. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. So, he did it because I wouldn't talk to him and told him he had to get a warrant. I didn't have nothing else to add. He went to his car. He got a warrant to arrest my son. he did arrest him. He started to pat him down. So we had, he had told us he was going to arrest him. So I had told my son, hey, look, you're going to he's mad. He's going to arrest you. It is what it is. We'll get you out. So he had already emptied his pockets. He wrote down his girlfriend's number. I mean, I don't know anybody's phone number. Do you? I mean, I might know my boyfriend's, but with these cell phones these days, I would be I'm in trouble.
Was all this outside of your residence, like in the yard or on a front porch or something?
What, when they arrested him or?
Yeah, where was your son when they came to
He
your
was
residence?
outside.
So all this occurred outside, correct?
Yeah. So
Okay, because that's what I'm trying to do is kind of give the audience a visual of where everybody was, because that I'm trying to establish the line of demarcation,
Well,
and
so
then we have your home.
it was a matter of like essentially minutes. So I sent my older son to take the younger kids into the house while I talked to the officer. The officer, immediately was like, oh, I'm going to get a warrant to arrest him. So my boyfriend and I walked to the porch. I told my son, hey, he's going to arrest you. So my son wrote the phone number, 2 phone numbers, I think, on his hand, and, emptied his pockets. And soon as he had the warrant, my son met him in the middle of the yard, and he arrested him. Well, he started to pat him down, and I was out there with my boyfriend on our porch, and where you guys saw in the video was where I stood the whole time. And he started to pat him down. He said, do you have anything on you? And my son said no. And he said, where's your cell phone? And he said, I don't have a cell phone. And immediately I said, my son's going to invoke his Fifth Amendment. He has nothing to say. He wants a lawyer. Chris, go ahead and tell him. And my son told him that. And he said, he got mad. He's like, that's fine. He takes him to the police car, and he starts questioning him again about this cell phone. And I said, he just told you he has nothing to say and he wants a lawyer. Why are you still questioning him? The officer left that part out of his police report. And he immediately shuts the door. Well, when he went up to the cop car, he told me and my boyfriend to stay right there. And we went up to the cop car. The other kids had started to come outside, and I told them to go back in the house because I think they thought probably once my son was being taken to the car that it was over. But I didn't want my younger kids exposed, to that. So I was like, go back in the house. So they went. Plus, you just don't ever know like what officers are going to do or say. Like, they're unpredictable, and I just don't want my little kids. I just didn't, I don't feel safe about it. So I told them to go back inside. He came down the hill and he was like, I'm securing the home, everybody out of it. And I said, do you have a warrant? He said, I'm securing the home, everyone out. I have reason to believe there's contraband in the house that is related to something I'm investigating. Everybody out. And I asked him again, do you have a warrant? He said, fine, I'll clear it myself. And he went barging into the house. I immediately was like, I was shocked, I think. And as soon as he said that, I said, I'll call the cops on you. Because I didn't know what else to do. He just walked right past me and barged into the house. And like my little kids were in there and my dogs. First of all, I was scared because, not just my children, not just for me, but like the way this officer was acting, I didn't know how my dog was going to respond. And what if he would have shot my dog? And like something bad, it was escalating. So I immediately called 911 for help because he would not answer me when I asked if he had a warrant. He wasn't saying anything about getting a warrant. He wasn't indicating anything other than what he said. He's securing my home and he wanted everybody out of it. So I go in, and because I almost felt like a sense to like protect my children. You know what I mean? So like I go in and I'm like, I kept asking him, the phone's ringing for 911. And I'm asking him, do you have a warrant?
Come on out of the house. Everyone's detained.
Do you have a warrant?
Come on out.
Do you have a warrant? This is being videotaped. I hope you know that. Do you have a warrant? I'm going to call the police, and I don't care. I'm going to call the cops.
Everyone outside now.
What's your name and your badge number?
If you continue to
I have
obstruct me,
kids. I'm not obstructing you. I have small kids and dogs. Do you have a warrant? Do you have a warrant?
You're going to be placed under
Do you have a warrant?
right now. Get everyone out of this house right now.
Yes, ma'am. Not
Under
for what?
obstruction.
I'm on the phone with 911.
You're hindering my
You're
investigation.
scaring my son.
Again, everyone is detained.
I called the police to confirm that you had a warrant, and then you're arresting me.
Make yourself known. Please exit.
I want my phone. No, give me my phone. No, give me my phone.
Sheriff's office, come on outside, please. Thank you. Is there anyone else here? Thank you. Sheriff's office.
Listen, I can tell you what he said.
Do you just want to read it into the record?
He said she aggressively spoke over me, telling me again to go get a warrant. I told Natasha I was in the process of doing so right now and would be back with her in just a moment to arrest him. She thanked me and went to her house. And that is not what he said. He told me, fine, I'll go apply for a warrant right now to arrest your son. It was more of like a retaliatory type attitude, which is just like, whatever. I did thank him because I'm not going to argue with a police officer. He said, I applied for and was granted an arrest warrant charging Joseph for speeding and felony fleeing and eluding. I decided any additional charges could be taken later at the conclusion of this investigation. Corporal Hart and I went to the residence to place Joseph under arrest. Natasha met me outside. I asked her if she could get Joseph advised he was under arrest. I had a felony warrant for Joseph's arrest signed and in hand and knew he was inside the residence, but instead of making entry to effect the arrest, I allowed Natasha to go inside and bring him out. A short time later, Joseph came outside. I placed him in handcuffs behind his back. I checked the handcuffs for proper fit and double locked them. I emptied Joseph's pockets and provided his property to include a ring from his finger to Natasha to give Taylor, per his request, who had come out from inside the residence. Mind you, he didn't have anything in his pockets. He did have a ring on that he took off. This was my first sighting of Taylor, as I knew her car had been at the house since my arrival. She didn't come to the door when I knocked, and she didn't arrive in the truck after Natasha brought Joseph to the house from Papa John's, which Taylor and my other son were at the house before we got home, but we have a fully finished basement. And that's where my other teenage sons, that's where their bedrooms are. So if they were down there, it doesn't surprise me if they knocked on the door that nobody heard it. So I advised everyone to stay right here for a second as I walked Joseph to my patrol car. I immediately heard Natasha order everyone to go back inside, which I did, because I don't allow my kids to be subjected. This officer I just knew, I could sense like where it was not going a good way. Does that make sense? Like, I knew what he was doing. I knew that he got the arrest warrant for my son at my house. I know that he came to my house hoping that I would have something to offer him that would allow him probable cause to go and arrest my son, because why else would you not have arrested him right before you came to my house, right? And I felt like when I didn't want to speak with him, he got angry. And that's when he, told me he's going to get this police report. And so I just kind of knew where his energy was leading to. And, when the kids thought it was over and came outside, I had told them, go back in the house. Which they did, but they stayed right there by the window. I have on my front door, you could see there's glass at the top of it. One of my teenage sons was actually recording through that glass window when he came down the front and barged in, because when he barged in, he actually hit my kid with the door. And then my 9-year-old was over by this window.
The officer had already had interaction with your son, apparently you said a day or two before. And was this traffic incident the same day he was at your house?
The incident was a day or two before, but he
Okay.
had just had interaction with my son and talked with him directly prior for driving to my house. So he was just at my son's work talking to him.
Gotcha.
It was
And
just
then
total coincidental that I happened to pick him up from work and he was coming home with me. Otherwise, my son would not have been with me. So he tries to claim in this police report that after he knocked on my door, that he went back to his car and was already applying for a warrant, was in the process of doing it. But my son doesn't live there. He wasn't supposed to come to my house. It was a last minute, hey, can you give me a ride? So Why would you be doing that at my house?
And let me clarify for a moment. So when you say a warrant, when you said he was applying for the warrant at that particular stage before he comes in, is that an arrest warrant for your son?
Arrest warrant for my son.
Okay. And then does he end up taking a search warrant out after the fact? Because there was something about something happened 30 minutes
He took a
after.
search warrant out after he barged into my house and arrested me.
So there's two different warrants at play here. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that's where when we're throwing the word warrant around, I'm just
Sorry.
trying to keep the audience clear. No, you're doing
Yeah.
a great job. So he tried. Okay, so he did not have an arrest warrant when he arrived on scene, and before entering your home, but he's claiming to have applied for the arrest warrant for your son, and then I guess he's saying, hey, he's going to arrest your son. You're telling your son plead the fifth, just go ahead, let him arrest you, and then we get up to the point that somehow he enters your home and then he takes out a search warrant after the fact.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
when he says when he heard me order everyone go back inside, he said I asked Joseph where his cell phone was, and he told me he did not have one, even though he provided me with his phone number a short time earlier at Papa John's. I noticed Joseph had phone numbers written on his arms with marker and pen. This was odd to me, as most people I take into custody elect to bring their cell phone with them to obtain phone numbers from it at the jail. Mind you, when he arrested me, and he's claiming in here that the phone numbers written on my son's arm was odd to him, because most people that he takes into custody bring their cell phones with them to obtain phone numbers from jail. When he arrested me, he took my phone from me while 911 was on it. He handed it to his partner, who then I had to, essentially I kept saying, give me my phone. And eventually I was like, give my phone to my boyfriend, because 911 was still on there. And I knew they weren't going to let me talk to 911. And I was trying, as I was standing there, my boyfriend, I was trying to get him to put it on speakerphone so that I could continue to try to ask before they took me to the car, because I'm still like not feeling safe. I'm like in a state of like shock and disbelief, obviously, but mind you, I didn't take my cell phone to jail, couldn't take my cell phone to jail. So what's the difference? But anyway, he said, I believe Joseph was intentionally avoiding the ability for me to access his cell phone. He said, I placed. So this is where he's saying that he started asking my son about his phone. He left out the part that my son told him, he was pleading the fifth and he wanted an attorney. And he's admitting that he continued to ask him about the phone after he pled the fifth and wanted an attorney. He said, I placed Joseph in the rear seat of my patrol car and went back to the residence. Due to Joseph's cell phone containing fragile digital evidence of the crime, I elected to pursue a search warrant to obtain the phone so it could be forensically downloaded. In previous cases like this one, I have experienced great success in obtaining digital evidence from the suspect's cell phone to include but not limited to GPS data, which can be analyzed and provide speeds of the violator as well as locations with timestamps proving he was the one seen on the motorcycle the previous night. I knew Joseph's phone would be inside the residence at this location, as Joseph just came here with his mother directly from Papa John's, where I previously spoke with him, and he likely wouldn't have left it anywhere else. Time was clearly of the essence, as there was an extenuate need to secure the residence, individuals at the residence to safeguard the cell phone from destruction. The exigency was based upon the totality of the circumstances, as parties at the residence were being uncooperative, lying, and purposely hiding from me. I believed without a doubt the cell phone would be destroyed or removed from the house if they were aware I was seeking it for its evidentiary value and the time it would take me to obtain a search warrant.
So they're manufacturing a pretext to justify the search warrant. They're claiming that's what I thought. They were going to manufacture an exigent circumstance, and now you're saying that they were looking for a phone. There was no evidence at any time that anybody was going to destroy that phone.
Nope.
And
And
I
matter of fact, I have video footage of once they obtained the search warrant, that arresting officer and a couple other officers that arrived after I was arrested were standing in my living room. And one of the officers asked the arresting officer, where does he sleep at? And the arresting officer said, oh, he supposedly just moved back from North Carolina a couple weeks ago. He stays in an apartment with his girlfriend. The officer said, so this is his girlfriend's house. And the arresting officer said, no, this is his mom's house. And the other officer was like, his mom's, and looked kind of confused. And the arresting officer said,
Take it
yeah.
as a compliment.
The arresting officer was like, yeah. He's like, when I told her he was under arrest, I think she went like that way. So he was like up here. Like, they didn't even know for sure anything about a phone. Mind you, I didn't even know what it was they were doing or what they wanted until after I got out of jail. He never said anything about a warrant. He never said anything about a cell phone. He never said anything. Matter of fact, I told the supervisor when I was in the back of the car, I said, maybe if he would have just said something or asked for something. And he was like, well, he's looking for a phone. I said, oh, well, he could say something. I'm like, we don't know. Like, he didn't even ask us. Obviously, I don't have to like tell you anything, but at the end of the day, you didn't even ask a question. You didn't even say that you know what I mean? It was totally like, I felt so violated and so
Sure.
traumatized. Like, I was so confused. And that happened. And he never said that he was applying for a warrant. Like, he says in his report that what did he say? He was like, he said, I elected to pursue a search warrant. Let's see. I knew Justice's phone would be inside the residence. Time was of the essence, blah, blah, blah. At approximately 8:38 p.m., upon my arrival back to the residence, I politely informed Natasha the house was being secured for a search warrant, as I believed there was evidence of the crime I was investigating inside the house. I mean, if you want to call that polite, but no. I told Natasha I needed everyone out of the house. Natasha began yelling at me that I show her a warrant, despite the fact I just told her I would be securing the house to apply for a search warrant. I opened the door and told everyone to come out. First of all, he did not tell me that he was applying for a search warrant. If he told me he was applying for a search warrant, why would I sit there and ask him 12,000 times, do you have a warrant? And I was not yelling at him. I was asking him. Now, I did start getting louder once he barged into my home. He goes, let's see. He says, I opened the door and told everyone to come out. He looked at me the last time I asked him if he had a warrant, and he said verbatim on camera, fine, I will clear it myself. And he shoved my door open, smacked my other kid with the door. My 9-year-old was standing right inside the house. And he looked at him and he yelled at him to get out. And he told him everybody was detained. So he starts yelling.
Now he's detaining the minor children.
Yes, he told them everybody was detained. And he said, matter of fact, he said it twice. He said that he was detaining everybody when he said something about securing the home. And then when he barged in, he told my children that he was detaining them. He said everybody was detained, everybody out. And at this point, I'm on the phone trying to call 911 and I'm asking him if he has a warrant. I have no idea what's going on. He would not answer me about the warrant. I just feel like at some point, if he wasn't trying to like scare us and like just do what he wanted to do at any cost, like he could have just had a conversation. It was the way it went from almost like 0 to 100. You know what I mean? Like, it went from he had an agenda and he was going to complete it however he needed to do it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so I just kept asking him if he had a warrant. And then as soon as 911 answered, I went to look at my phone, and because they say 911, what's the location of your emergency? And right before I went to say the address and start to ask her, like, is it legal for like an officer to come into my home without a warrant? Because I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what the heck's going on. And I just know that I kept asking him for a warrant and he's not supposed to be in my house and I don't know what's going on. And as soon as I went to say that, he jerked my hands behind me, told me I was under arrest. I said, for what? He said, obstruction. I said, obstruction for asking you if you have a warrant and if calling 911. Mind you, the whole time he's yelling at my kids, they weren't leaving the house. You know what I mean? I was standing inside my home, yes, but I never physically, you know what I mean? Like, I was scared of him. So I wasn't going to give him any reason to physically harm me, let alone, do any, I didn't feel like I was obstructing anything. I felt like I was like trying to protect my children and trying to protect my home. And he totally like violated that. And I watch crime TV all the time. And like one of the things that I have conversations with about, I could never go to jail. And I'm like, that's probably one of the main reasons I've always lived a straight and narrow life, is because I would literally rather die than be confined and controlled in a jail. And so when he put me in handcuffs and took my phone away, I was like in a state of like kind of like disbelief. Like, this is not happening. You know what I mean? Like, this can't be legal. This can't be happening. And his partner that was standing there wouldn't say or do anything. You know, it was like I knew I wasn't getting any answers or any help from the officer that was arresting me. And then, you know, I'm trying to ask this other officer, you know, and he just would not respond. I'm like asking for my phone. He looks at the arresting officer and he's like, "Do you need her phone?" Meanwhile, 911's still on it. And I'm like, "No, he doesn't need my phone." I'm like, "Please give it to my boyfriend." And so finally he gives him the phone, and I said, I could hear 911 on there, and he jerked me down. He took me down the steps to the yard, and the arresting officer went back in my house and did what he called the safety sweep. And it wasn't a safety sweep. He just didn't want any of us inside my home. It had nothing to do with, it was all children. You know what I mean? It was my children and like my son's, who is also a child. I mean,
So let me share something with you, because you brought me to a perfect point to do this. I'm going to share the screen, and I just kind of did a quick Lexis search on the issue of, can police enter a home without a search warrant to conduct a protective sweep while applying for a search warrant? And this is kind of just a very quick search that I did. And as it says, under the Fourth Amendment, police generally cannot enter a home without a search warrant, as warrantless entries are presumptively unreasonable. However, there are exceptions, including exigent circumstances and protective sweeps, which may justify warrantless entry under specific conditions. In the 11th Circuit, a protective sweep is a limited search of premises conducted to ensure officer safety or prevent harm to others. It is permissible when officers have a reasonable belief, based on specific and articulable facts, that the area to be swept harbors an individual posing danger. The principle was established in Maryland versus Bew and applied in such cases as United States versus Jackson, where officers conducted a protective sweep of an apartment after observing potential threats. However, a protective sweep must be narrowly confined to areas where a person might be hiding and cannot be used as a pretext for a broader search. Well, now here, your son was already in custody. He was outside the home, correct?
yes.
Additionally, exigent circumstances may justify warrantless entry if there's an urgent need for immediate action, such as preventing the destruction of evidence, ensuring public safety, or addressing a flight risk. Well, we don't have a flight risk. There's no public safety issue. And I don't believe there's any facts that I've heard so far to justify destruction of evidence. If I'm hearing what you're saying, the police already knew where you were. You just had some minor children in the home. And I guess you said your boyfriend was at the home. So, and none of you guys are connected to any of this, whatever happened or what was going on with your son. And you didn't even know what it is they were looking for.
Nope.
So, let's see here. The court noted that the exigent circumstances allow entry when there's a compelling need for action and no time to secure a warrant. The court recognized that exigent circumstances could justify entry to break up a violent confrontation to prevent harm. Well, that doesn't apply here. However, the 11th Circuit, which is where Georgia is, has also emphasized that warrantless entries must be carefully scrutinized. In United States versus Chavez, the court held that a warrantless entry into a warehouse for a protective sweep violated the Fourth Amendment, even though the police were applying for a search warrant. The court suppressed evidence obtained from the illegal entry unless it could be shown that the warrant was supported by independent probable cause. In conclusion, while police may conduct a protective sweep or enter a home under exigent circumstances without a warrant, such actions must be justified by specific and articulable facts indicating an immediate threat or danger. If officers are applying for a search warrant, they must still adhere to the strict requirements to avoid violating the Fourth Amendment, United States v. Jackson, and these other cases. So I haven't heard it. I think that the protective sweep, while he was at your home, did he ever say, you said he was talking about conducting a protective sweep?
Yeah, no, he never said that to me. That was only said on the when they released that statement.
So the issue of the protective sweep never came up until after your arrest and everything was over.
Yeah,
And so they
he
got with their.
also he lied though, because like in this report, he says that all he did was he said, I opened the door and told everyone to come out. Natasha interjected herself between me and the front door, continuously yelling at me, asking if I had a warrant and demanding I show her a warrant. He went into my home. I did not stand. He's making it as if like he went to try to open my door and tell people to get out, and I stood between him and my front doorway. I had to go inside my home and turn back around to look at him because he barged into my house. Thankfully, here's the thing. My front door has what do they call the little plates that you have to latch the door with? Like when the door latches, there's plates on the door frame. It's got double those, so it's one of those. It's a door that you really gotta force. You know, you gotta. It's a nice strong door, but you gotta like push it, close, and open. We did it that way so no drafts could get through the winter. It's like real tight, like secure. So he had to use, some force. He went barging in there and went into my home. There are photographs and the video, and like you can see, he's standing inside my house when he arrested me. He's making it out in this police report as if he just opened the door and told everyone to come out, and that Natasha interjected herself between me and the front door, continuously yelling at me, asking if I had a warrant and demanding I show her a warrant. I interjected myself between him and my children inside my home. That's what I did. And because he was now inside my house and I didn't know what he was going to do. And I felt I needed to protect my children. That's what it was. And I'm not sorry for that. And I don't feel like I should be sorry for that. And it really,
You don't owe any apology for attempting to. Were you trying to close the door, keep him from entering?
Nope, I didn't. No, because at this point I'm so scared of him. And I said this before, like, and even my boyfriend, he's like, the officer was like looking. He didn't like me from the jump. The moment I said I wouldn't speak with him and that he had to get a warrant, total attitude. Like he keeps saying that he was like this, but like total, like, passive aggressive, almost like just the way that he was carrying himself and the way that he looked, you could just tell, you know what I mean? Like his demeanor was just not okay. Like you could feel it.
Can you clarify that little bit? You were talking about the doorway. It sounded like he was trying to come to the doorway and maybe you were doing something with the door. Could you just clarify again with that a little bit more? Is he saying you were trying to obstruct him from coming to the door?
No. So in the video you can see, which is why I'm kind of shocked that he even wrote this in this police report, because in the video you can do, and we have we have 3 different angles. I have a door camera, I have a camera inside my living room, and my other son happened to be videotaping through the little glass whenever the officer hit him with the
ugly ass nigga.
Everyone's detained. Come
Do you
on.
have a warrant? Do you have a warrant? This is being videotaped. I hope you know that. Do you have a warrant? I'm going to call the police.
You did nothing.
I'm going to call the cops.
We'll go from a map.
What's your name and your badge number?
If you continue to
I have
obstruct me,
kids. I'm not obstructing you. I have small kids and dogs.
if you continue
Do
to
you have a
obstruct
warrant?
me,
What's your badge number?
Do you have a warrant?
you're going to be placed
Do
under
you have a warrant?
What's your badge number?
Everyone out of this house right now.
Yes, ma'am. 921 Little River. For what?
Obstruction.
I'm not doing. I'm on the phone with 911.
You're hindering.
Let me. You're scaring my son.
Everyone is detained.
I called the police to confirm if you had a warrant and you're arresting me.
Everyone is detained.
Put it on social media.
Don't worry.
Put it on social media.
Take your brother, please. Go.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
Where's
okay.
my phone? Get my phone.
It's okay.
Where's my phone?
Anyone else in the house? Make yourself
Give my phone.
Yes, it's Haven.
I want my phone.
Stop.
We need it.
No, it's okay. Stop.
No, give
Stop
me
talking.
my phone.
Oh my god.
Door. So, and it stayed videotaping. So I was on my front porch and he was down my steps and demanding that I get everybody out of the house. And when he said that they were detained, or we were all, I don't remember, it was very quick, but when I asked him for a warrant, He said, fine, I'll clear it myself, and went straight into my home. Walked right past me, went straight barging into my home, shoved my door open and went, took a step inside. And when he shoved the door open, my son was on the other side and it hit him with the door, and he stepped back and continued to record. My 9-year-old was over here by the side window, and immediately he was terrified. And this officer, because when he barged the door open and I stepped inside too, like with him, my son, like he almost didn't pay attention to me for a minute. He looked directly at my 9-year-old and was telling him to get out of the house. Everybody was detaining. My 9-year-old is like, he's terrified at this point. So he just goes out. And he's just standing there, watching on the front porch. The officer kind of looks past me and starts yelling at my other son who's videotaping, and he's telling him to get out. Well, my other son was further into the house, so it took him, a second as he's recording to go out. That left the officer enough time between telling him to get out to look at me and be like, if you continue to obstruct me, and I said, I'm not obstructing you. I want to know if you have a warrant to be inside my house right now. And I kept asking him, do you have a warrant? And then 911 answered. And then it was as soon as he heard 911, I don't know that he knew I was actually calling 911, even though I told him I was. Matter of fact, when he barged in my home, one of the first things I said was, I have small kids and I have dogs. And I said, I hope you know this is being recorded right now. And I'm like, do you have a warrant to be in my home? And that's when he, just kept doing all the yelling. And then finally I heard 911 answer. And when he found out 911 was actually on the phone, that's when he immediately, a phone still in my hand, took my arms back. And he's real tall, so he pulled my arms up real high and put the handcuffs on me real tight. And then took my phone and handed it to his partner. He says, asking if I had a warrant, demanding I show her a warrant. Natasha refused to cooperate and called 911 on me. I continued, which I told him when he said, I'll clear it myself, as he was barging into my home, he said that. I went to follow him and I said, I'm calling 911 on you. So he already knew I was calling 911. What he just did, I felt like a burglar was just running in my home. I didn't even know what to do. I might have said, I'm calling the cops on you, because that's who we call for help, right? And I felt really helpless, like I needed to call somebody for help. So I told him I was calling the cops on him. And so, he says in here that after I interjected, Natasha interjected herself between me and the front door, continuously yelling at me, asking if I had a warrant and demanding I show her a warrant. Natasha refused to cooperate and called 911 on me. I continued to politely explain to Natasha several times if she continued to obstruct and hinder me, she would be arrested for obstruction. Natasha continued refusing to obey my lawful commands, instead ignoring me and continuing to block me from securing the residence and hindering me from performing my duties. I told Natasha she was under arrest for obstruction, secured her in handcuffs behind her back. I checked the handcuffs for proper fit, double locked them. I took her phone from her hand and provided it to her boyfriend. That's not what he did. He took my phone from me and gave it to his partner. It was not until his partner asked him, do you need her phone? That finally my boyfriend was able to take it from his partner, because I kept making a point, give me my phone, because I thought I needed help. I didn't know what they were going to do to me. That's truly, honestly how I felt. And I knew that 911 was still on the phone. So I was I went from, oh my God, he is doing this, and he did this and now he's doing this, to, okay, 911's still on the phone. Maybe I still have a chance to ask for help, Yeah,
there's some calls, but there's police here right now. All right, so hey, it's 182. Everything's fine. Okay.
Please don't take it.
Let me explain to you what's going on. Sure. So I have probable cause to believe that there's a child-related crime that I'm investigating. That gives me lawful authority to.
So I made a point to be give me my phone. And then he asked his partner, and he was like, I don't need her phone. So I said, can you please give it to my boyfriend? And then that's when I heard the 911 operator. I tried to ask again, and his partner pulled me into the yard. This officer he said, I announced to other occupants to make themselves known and to exit, which I know now because a lot of the stuff we're getting into now, I did not know until I got out of jail when I was able to review my footage, because at this point had my back turned because I had my back turned towards the door. I didn't know what was going on. My 9-year-old literally went into full blown breakdown, panic attack, started crying when he was on the ground. I told the officers, I remember telling them, "You're scaring my son." Like, it was just, they were just acting like I said, they were going to do what they wanted to do at any cost. It did not matter. But I was just trying to tell them, hey, like, so he took me to the yard, and mind you, I couldn't see the back I couldn't see my back anymore. So I didn't know what they were doing in the house until I reviewed the footage. But after he had his partner take me to the yard, he then turned around and went back inside my house with his flashlight. He says he said, "I announced to other occupants to make themselves known and to exit." He briefly walked around my upstairs of my house and did tell them if there's anybody else in the house and that's, Taylor, at this point, Taylor and a juvenile female came outside from the back hallway. The juvenile female is my stepdaughter. She's 8. And she was with us at Jumping World. So she, went inside with my other son. But at that point, Taylor tells him, like, "You're scaring the little kids." Like, he was acting like an idiot, and so he said, "I briefly checked the house for other people, finding none. Once the house was secured, I quickly exited and rejoined all the parties outside. I informed Natasha's boyfriend of what was occurring and had him, a teenage male who appeared to be a brother of Joseph's, Taylor, and 2 juvenile children remain on the front porch while I obtained a search warrant for the residence." When I pulled up the camera when he did his sweep and shut my front door, I was still in the yard for a minute, and he came outside, and I heard the 911 operator again, and he picked up the phone, and the officer did. He took the phone from my boyfriend, and he said, 182, we're fine. And he hung up the phone. I felt super violated about that too, because I was like, I don't know. I just felt like, are we not supposed to be able to, like, call 911 when we feel like we need help, regardless of, like, who it is? You know what I mean? And I felt like he stopped me from protecting my home, protecting my children. He stopped me from calling for help, and hung up my phone. And then I went to say something like, "No, I want to know if he's allowed to have a warrant to be in my house." And he immediately goes, "Take her to the car." So he's walking me up to the car, and I'm asking this other officer, I'm like, "Why do you guys do this to people?" I was like, "Why am I not allowed to ask questions?" Like, at that point, another officer was coming up, and my other son was still videotaping, and he was asking every officer, like, "What's your name? What's your badge number?" And this other officer that walked up gave him his badge number, and he could kind of tell, like, something was going on, and he asked, like, "Do you guys want a supervisor here?" And my son was like, "Yes, that would be great." So the officer who arrested me came on the porch, and he said, "Now let me explain now what's going on," because my boyfriend was like, what is going on here?" And then now you've got, like, 2 people in handcuffs, and we've only been home like 15 minutes, like, it's crazy at this point. So the officer's like, "Let me explain what's going on here." He's like, "I have reason to believe that there's evidence inside the home that could be related to what I'm investigating." He's like, "So that gave me the lawful authority to remove everybody from the home and secure the residence to prevent any possible destruction of evidence. And now I'm going to go apply for a search warrant. So if everybody could stay on the porch, that's what I'm going to go do." And then he went and he applied for a search warrant. And about 40 minutes later, now a bunch of officers have shown up. My 9-year-old is still on the porch, hyperventilating, crying, saying he, like, felt like he couldn't breathe. And he's being very loud about it. Like, he's hysterical, right? And he had begged the officer, like, "Don't take my mom." Like, he's just and the officer wouldn't even look at him. would not even acknowledge his existence. And as he's like sitting by himself on this porch, because mind you, his mom's not there. He don't have a parent. And all these officers are standing in my yard, and he's pretty much saying he feels like he's dying, and not one single officer asked him if he was okay. They didn't offer to render aid. They didn't speak to him. They didn't care. They got the warrant, and this, I mean, I kind of like was like, wow. I mean, I kind of like laughed a little bit. Like, are you kidding me? They got the warrant, and then the officer knocks on my door and goes, "Warrant, police," as if he didn't just eject us all from our home and arrest me. Now you're gonna knock on the door with a warrant? Like, I was.
So you're outside. He takes everybody outside to do his what appears to be unconstitutional protective sweep, based on what I've heard so far. And then, at some point, are you saying he let everybody back into the home?
No, he made them all wait. Took me to jail, or he put me in the cop car.
No, I'm confused about you said knocking on the door. That's what threw me off a little bit.
Yeah, that's what threw
Can
me
you
off.
explain that?
Everybody was out. He was doing it because it didn't have a no knock provision on the warrant, and you have to knock when you have.
He was. Are you saying he was knocking on the door to an empty house? Are you kidding me?
I swear, I have it on.
Oh, search warrant. Dogs. I'm gonna get the one dog.
They're not.
I'll get them both. I'll bring them out.
Tape.
He knocked on a door to an empty house to check off some. That's where I was
But
thrown off. I
mind
thought
you-
everybody was outside.
But mind you, I feel like he was doing this because now there's a lot of officers there who weren't there when he did all what he did, and now his lieutenant is there. So it's like it's like check.
What is the name of the officer you keep referring to again?
Yeah, Aaron Mills, Corporal Aaron Mills, and then his lieutenant.
How do you spell that? The first name, Aaron, Aaron. Aaron, Aaron Mills, Mills.
Yeah.
And what police department is it?
Cherokee County Sheriff.
Cherokee County. So if anybody watching this wants to share their opinions or contact that police department in a respectful way, professional way, to share your thoughts about what you think about this, do it on their Facebook page or their social media, or there can be emails on the police website. But again, be professional. Don't do anything inappropriate, but you can lawfully, under your own free speech rights, share your thoughts about all this.
Yeah.
So let's
people.
kind of wrap this up. So you've been charged with obstruction, and just in a few sentences, what is the specific act that they're claiming that to support that allegation of obstruction? If you could clarify that again.
I think it was that he said that I interjected myself between me and the front door, continuously yelling at him, asking if I had a warrant, demanding that I show her a warrant, which that is a blatant
Okay.
lie. Like, I don't understand how he could lie in this. Like, there's too much.
What part is a lie?
Well, he says that I put myself between him and the front door and was yelling. I did not. He was inside my house. He's making it out in this police report like he opened my door and then I stepped in front, like he was still outside my door, and like I stepped in between him and my house and was yelling about a warrant. That's not what happened. So I'm watching on the camera after all of this, right? They go outside, the arresting officer goes outside, and he starts asking like who has, do y'all have the phone? Eventually, I think they all said no. And then eventually, I think because my son's girlfriend was outside, eventually I think she was like, I have the phone. There was like a lot of stuff that that officer put in his police report about, how, he was checking location, like a lot of stuff that he was going through to get.
Do you know by chance if he was doing anything more than a protective sweep? As you can see when we discussed the case law, if they did do a protective sweep, it's just supposed to be a very quick search. You go in, see if anybody's in the rooms. Or do you have any video? I don't know if you had a camera inside the home. Do you show where like he's actually going through doors or going into the bedrooms, looking under beds, or doing something more than a protective sweep?
I think at that point he did just like use his flashlight to walk down the hallway and make sure that everybody was out, but he wasn't making sure everybody was out because of a protective sweep. He was making sure everybody was out because that was his agenda when he went barging into my home. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he
How long was this protective sweep, if you had to quickly guess?
not
Alleged
not
protective
long.
sweep.
He was longer in my house making everybody get out and arresting me than he was doing this protective
Okay.
sweep. But he didn't, you know what I mean? Like also my whole downstairs, like I'm like, well, if there was somebody, it was so fishy. But let me tell you real quick that eventually my son's girlfriend had all of his belongings and he ended up having she ended up having his phone. She gave it to him, to the officer. Immediately the officer started kind of treating her like he was treating me. And he said, I should place you under arrest for, for obstruction. And my boyfriend immediately was like, hey, like she's a kid, she's scared, she gave you the phone. Like, I'm hoping that maybe you already took 2 people to jail. I'm hoping that you can like just maybe cut her a break. And he goes, well, we're about to have 3, but I just don't have the handcuffs. And then his lieutenant hands him the handcuffs and he says, thank you. So the officer walks over. My other child is right beside the girlfriend and he's recording at this point. And the officer walks over. So he's like right beside my son and puts her in handcuffs. She's crying, stands her up, and he goes, I just want to be transparent with you. I'm going to take you all to jail. When I take you guys to jail, I'm going to write up a warrant to search your apartment. You will probably be in jail when I search your apartment. And unless you want your door kicked down and damaged, do you have a key you can give me? She's crying and she's like in handcuffs and she's like, well, yeah, I think it's in my car.
You put me in a tough spot right now because like I came here, I said, here's a search warrant for a cell phone that belongs to him. You had it. Not only did you have it, you turned it off while I was calling it trying to find it.
I think she's just scared, man.
Yeah. But she hindered my execution, my search warrant, my investigations.
I know. I'm hoping at this point we can just maybe at least cut her a break. You know, she did give it to you. She made a dumb decision. We got 2 people in jail right now.
We're about to have 3.
I understand.
I'm just out of handcuffs.
I'm hoping you can just cut her a break.
Thank you. You're under obstruction as well.
I gave it to you.
Well, we were gonna find it eventually. We were gonna search.
Or can I call my father?
Tried calling him earlier. You wouldn't answer me.
My father?
Yeah. You were worried about your car.
My father's been answering me. Can I please call my dad?
You can call him when you get to jail.
He'll give you a phone.
I need to be able to call him since he's waiting for me to leave.
Alright, cool. My next step after I drop you guys off at jail, just for a full
I'm handing him my rings.
Mills, what kind of phone is?
Yeah, I'll take all your stuff.
My guys?
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah. iPhone in a black case. So again, full transparency.
Yeah.
After I drop you guys off at jail, my next step is to write a search warrant for y'all's apartment to go look for items there. Y'all are probably gonna be in jail when I'm doing that. So and to prevent me from having to kick your door in and cause damage out there.
Yeah.
Can you give me a key? Yeah. Do you have a key with you?
Yeah, it's in my car.
Okay, we'll go try to grab that then. Where's your
It's gonna be okay.
your car at?
You're gonna get out soon.
Alright, so I'm sitting with you on the computer. I'll get y'all case card in this case.
Thank you.
I mean, it is what it is.
It is indeed.
Here's the thing, at the end of the day, though, it's not like she's going to jail for murder.
No, she'll be on a day or 2.
It's an obstruction charge. Yeah. However, like, there's plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, I get both sides, you know. I get both sides. It's just
Echo 23 Cherokee. Can I have the case number out here, please?
she's just young, scared. She meant to me.
Did that traffic get out?
I don't think so.
Echo 23 Cherokee. Can I have the case number out here, please?
Your case number is 12328 12328.
It's supposed to be a tiring job.
Sometimes.
It can be.
Well, I'm probably going to go get
Okay.
it.
So take that.
Get with one of these two. He might have a different case number.
Clear. I'll double check to make sure it's not another case number for her.
Okay.
But what we're going to do, we're going to call down to this non-emergency number here in a little bit.
Okay.
Once they get booked in, these charges will all have bonds.
I should be able to see it like online, right? Like when they get booked?
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you have any questions, call them. They'll be able to give you all that information and just reference that case number.
Okay.
But let me just double check that she's going under this case number and not under a second one.
I got you.
As long as they're not too busy, they should be ready to go by midnight.
Okay.
So they should just be able to get home and get back
Maybe
to
that
bed
makes sense.
tonight.
I'll write it on there if it's
Okay.
different.
So he goes, okay, well, we'll walk up to your car and we'll take a look. So he walks her up there and I'm like, why is another officer, mind you, they've already executed the search warrant. Search warrant was limited to just a cell phone. Why is this lieutenant going back into my house? So I pull up the cameras to see, like, why did he go back in? This lieutenant goes back into my home, looks around on my kitchen table and picks up a pair of keys and walks out. So they then, at this point, put her in the back of a cop car. She's in handcuffs. And instead of taking her to jail, they drove her.
And this is the keys to your home?
This is the key to my son's apartment. So they then put the girlfriend in the back of their cop car. And instead of taking her to jail, they took her to their apartment. In his police report, he skips over all of that. Doesn't matter. Like, I don't even know how he didn't say why he went to their apartment. He just said that he arrested her and then they went to her apartment. He said where she invited them in and they searched the apartment. Mind you, she's under arrest for obstruction and he doesn't know that we have this whole film of where your lieutenant just went in and took keys out of my house without my consent. And it wasn't part of a search warrant. And you also just coerced her and told her that you were going to have a sign. And if she didn't give you a key, essentially your door was going to be kicked in. So he doesn't know all that part. But anyway, he didn't find anything, but she also has cameras in her and my son have cameras in their apartment. So there's, camera footage of them walking into the apartment and them looking around and she's just standing there. And then they go back. They were there for about an hour because at about 10, they got there at 10 o'clock PM. At 10:50, they ended up obtaining a search warrant for my son's motorcycle that they uncovered and took pictures of. And then instead of taking her to jail, he drove her back to my house and gave her a citation and left her at my house. All this time, she thought she was going to jail.
Sounds like we're going to have some incredible motions to suppress for a number of people. So if I understand you, are you saying somehow he gets the keys from inside your home and then sort of coerces the girlfriend and your son, or one or both,
well,
saying,
he coerced
let us
her
into your
first.
apartment or we're going to kick the door down?
He coerced her first. As soon as he arrested her, as soon as he put handcuffs on and she stood up, he told her, I'm going to be fully transparent with you. I'm going to take you all to jail. And while you're in jail, I am going to not apply, not this or that. And mind you, she's a child, I'm going to write a warrant and then I'm going to search your home. This is probably going to be done while you guys are in jail. So unless you want me to kick your door down and have damage, do you have a key you could give me? She's crying and she's like, yeah, I think it's in my car. So they walk up to her car. Well, it's not in the car. Their keys are in my house. At this point, the lieutenant takes it upon himself to come down and don't even ask anybody, doesn't say anything, goes in, looks around on my kitchen table, grabs a set of keys, looks around for a minute, and then walks out my front door. My children are already back in this house.
Did she give consent to the officer to get the keys?
Not that I know. So I think they went to the car. She went to look for the keys. She's like, I don't think they're here. I think they're in the house. Maybe I can grab them. And they told her no, because she was under arrest.
And this interaction that you're talking about between the officer and your son's girlfriend, did you hear this or is this based upon what she told you?
I heard, no, I have video recording of him telling her that he was going to take them to jail and he was going to get a written. consent
Where did that conversation occur? Outside or inside your home?
on my front porch.
Oh, so everything you're telling me is backed up by video.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you need to get a little external hard drive and put all this video somewhere safe and then upload it also
I've
to a
uploaded it, and
cloud.
I have them on SD cards.
Also, always back up, and I'm saying this to the audience also, if you ever have interactions with officers, it's very easy to lose these little cards, the video. You want to back up to the cloud, as your Google Drive's free 15 gig, your iCloud, pay this $8 to get the terabyte and upload all this stuff, as well as try to have it on a physical card. It's very easy to lose those things. Computers can malfunction, etc.
Right.
And so I have a case right now, a federal lawsuit here in Middle Tennessee involving taking phones off somebody where they allege exigent circumstances, and we believe that was unlawful, but a completely set of different facts. But I haven't had a matter where it's involving this. I haven't had a protective sweep argument case yet.
It's my
several
thing though,
weeks.
is I'm almost 40 years old, and I've never been in trouble. I work in
Yeah.
healthcare where we have to have background checks. We have to do different things. I've never had a mugshot. My fingerprints weren't in the system. I have this weird, I was driving the other day and I passed this police officer and full blown anxiety because it was this realization, I feel like I can be doing the right thing and the right things and the lawful things. And it's scary because you're at the mercy of whichever officer, human that you get that day. Does that make sense? Instead of the law. So I'm angry because I feel like he violated me in a lot of ways. And yeah, I'm
All right. Well, listen, why don't we're at the hour mark, and I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate it.
And we'll maybe do an update with some other videos. But I'm going to stop the recording now. If you're watching this, please click like, share, and subscribe.